Identity on YouTube is a funny thing. What is it that makes a channel different from every other? If you follow my channel for any length of time, you've probably seen that I've tried out several different ideas in my quest to develop my own style. Some I've liked more than others, but they've all been different. This has been really fun for me to do, allowing me to experiment with different techniques, and it has also allowed me to learn a huge amount about how videos are put together, which has in turn changed how I view other people's content. But this does have downsides. There's a reason a lot of larger channels don't change up their style often, and it's because their identity is a big part of how they build a loyal following, something which is important to building their channel. Personality plays a big part in this, something I'll get into later, but another big part is building a brand around your channel and around you, the creator, something which some people do very well and others fairly poorly. With the recent meteoric rise of Chubs to over 300,000 subscribers, I've been thinking a lot about what people have to do to gain subscribers and what makes a channel successful. Chubs' content isn't terrible, but it is pretty average in terms of production value. But what Chubs does well is he has enticing titles and thumbnails which bring the viewers in, and then his dry sense of humour keeps them there. I'm avoiding using the term clickbait because it's pretty meaningless at this point, but it is something that's true of most channels, at least the successful ones. People discover them for a reason. Take a look at I Hate Everything. Alex grew large off the back of videos such as I Hate My Little Pony, I Hate the X Factor, and others like them. I wouldn't call them clickbait, but they are topics that people would search for. Where I think people like Mama Max and A Kind Ale will fall short is that they often produce content which they and their current subscribers enjoy, but aren't likely to bring in new viewers. That's not to say they need to switch over to BuzzFeed videos or some other bollocks, but be willing to delve more into the mainstream. If they want to maintain their integrity as video makers but still increase their exposure, they could perhaps talk about things which are popular but that others aren't talking about. It's easier said than done, but that's where I think the middle ground between success and being happy with their content may lie. Perhaps cover more games like Conan the Barbarian, fairly mainstream games. I know it would be an outlier to the Steam WildSpartanz series, but it would give people a reason to find that series, and from there they may go deeper down the rabbit hole. It's like any marketplace, it's about finding the gap in the market you can fill and occupying it. YouTube is competitive, people aren't going to spend hours and hours hunting down obscure pieces of art. It's not that they don't want to see it necessarily, it's that there's so much other stuff in the way that you need to break through. WildSpartanz, someone who I'll cover later, is exceptionally good at breaking through, but actually quite poor at retaining his viewership. Titles and thumbnails get clicks, content keeps people watching. Let's talk about what it is that makes up good content. I think one of the most important aspects of a video is the introduction. This is more than just the slide with your name on it. This is all about how you set the tone for the video. You might have noticed I've started putting quite a lot of time into the intros for the last couple of videos I've done, and that's because I think they can be a good way of immersing the person watching, pulling them in so they stick around. But it doesn't have to be an unnecessarily intense, slightly pretentious sequence. Some of the most iconic series on YouTube have really effective intros because they are immediately recognisable. Once you watch those few seconds, you know what's coming and it gets you in the mood. There's more to it than just the first few seconds, however. One of the most underappreciated aspects of video making, in my opinion, is how music and sound can change the tone. If we take another look at the intro clip I made for this video, except this time with some really underwhelming royalty-free music, it goes from being intense to looking like what it is. But whether it's sound or visual, the intro or the outro or the meat in the middle, the really important thing is why something is the way it is. When you watch a video by some creators, every single joke and visual is included for a reason, and that's what sets them apart from others in my mind. That's what makes their videos good enough that you can watch the same video multiple times. That's the kind of content I aspire to make. So setting the right tone and keeping people interested is important. But what about editing and production value? Well, it's funny you ask. On YouTube, it doesn't matter how much effort actually goes into your videos. What matters is how much effort people think goes into your videos. Perception is far more important than reality. This is something really vital which I think a lot of creators miss. There's a myth amongst viewers, myself included, that the editing that goes into some videos means they take a huge amount of time to make. If you look at Zaptai's videos back when he was releasing videos around once a month, most people accepted that it was just how long it took to make them. And whilst they were very good and had solid editing, they weren't the masterpieces some people view them as. Mama Max recently went through something of a crisis of faith with regards to his videos. Max has created this really cool style and puts a lot of effort into his videos, but gets a lot less credit than he deserves, partly I think because he has an upload schedule once a week. People just don't realise how much work goes into each of his videos. Having actually invested a lot of time into making videos and produced at least a couple of videos which I put a huge amount of time into editing, I still managed to research, write, record, edit and film everything for my first Zaptai video over the course of 4 or 5 days, while still working at my job. It involved a lot of hard graft and a decent amount of lost sleep, but considering Zaptai was a full-time YouTuber, he could very easily have made one 20-minute video of a good quality at least every 2 weeks and feasibly every week. But partly by not pushing out content as quickly as he could have and instead restraining his uploads, whether intentionally or not, he managed to elevate his reputation from being a very good content creator to being a great one. I think the same is even more true of Colossus is Crazy. I'm not trying to take anything away from Clown's videos, a lot of them are excellent, but the reason he doesn't upload more frequently isn't that his videos take 5 months to produce, it's because he has a full-time job, he puts a lot of time into collaborations with others and his podcast, and he spends a little bit too much time on Twitter. His videos do clearly take a sizable amount of time, but he's not an animator. It doesn't take 6 months of solid work for him to produce a video. Because of the length between videos and the quality of the output, Clown's content is raised up as if it's not possible that anyone else could ever make content as good as Clown, and I'm not sure that's a good thing. Good content is a term that people like to use a lot, but what does it even mean? It's so nebulous and subjective that it can be used to describe pretty much anything or nothing. What makes something objectively good? The amount of effort that goes in? Effort without talent and direction is more often than not wasted. Some people are talented and creative, but actually thanks to the great software available, they can produce their content in a much quicker amount of time than some would expect. I would suggest that a lot of the time that whether or not someone's content is considered good, or even great, has a lot to do with how it is conveyed and perceived, rather than just being about the content itself. When you look at a video by A Kind Ale War, in terms of the amount of effort and editing that goes into Aiden's videos, it's probably higher than the amount that went into Zaptai's, in terms of effort per minute of content. But because of the style and subject matter that Aiden puts across, he isn't put into the same sort of category by most viewers, who I think would probably say Zaptai's content was better, at least before he disappeared. Whilst Zaptai covered taboo topics, Aiden talks about bizarre Steam games whilst working his way into a drunken stupor. This isn't a criticism of people who do upload less frequently. In many ways it hurts them in terms of the YouTube algorithm rewarding consistency over quality. However, the much more difficult to quantify effect that limiting your uploads has is to increase the level of mystery behind the video production process and thus improve your reputation in the community. It's worth noting that Zaptai's most viewed video by far is one he made on Tana Mojo, which I don't feel uncomfortable in saying was his worst video. Quality doesn't equal views, but it may change people's opinion of you, something that gave Zaptai a shout out from Pyrocynical and very nearly a collaboration with I Hate Everything. Clown has spent a huge amount of time on collaborative work and other various projects, neglecting his own channel largely, but has still managed to ride a wave to over 300,000 subscribers. That's an insane number for someone who hasn't uploaded in 6 months, but it's because of all these collaborative projects and podcasts that Clown has been able to build up his reputation. Everyone in the community has heard of Colossal, and most of them are friends with him. It means he's racked up over 500,000 views on every video he has on his channel. But the real genius for Colossal is that he leaves you always wanting something more. There isn't an inexhaustible vault of Clown's videos to go back on, and that's exactly why the next video he uploads, whatever it is, will almost certainly break 700,000 views, a number which some much larger channels who spam their followers with daily uploads can only dream of. So now I shall move from one end of the spectrum to the other, at least in terms of people's perceptions. There have been so many videos shitting on WildSpartanz and his content, some of them good, some not so much, and I have to say I sympathise, but WildSpartanz has become something of a low-hanging fruit. He's an easy target and one many people have taken aim at, so instead of offering comedy, I shall aim for a genuine critique. I've talked previously about how he often doesn't produce original perspectives, and so have many others, so rather than just doing that, I'm going to pick apart this video where he responded to some criticism and try and talk about how I think WildSpartanz could have improved this video in particular, but also his channel in general. I wouldn't bother doing something like this if I thought WildSpartanz was a completely cynical, money-grabbing arsehole. Don't get me wrong, most of the decisions he makes with regards to his content are driven by making money, but it's not as if he's rolling in it just yet, and as far as I can tell, he doesn't have a Patreon. I may be proven wrong in the future, but I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt, so let's get into it. Firstly, the premise of the video. Content police is actually quite funny, or at least it has potential to be. Content cop is such an iconic feature on YouTube that a decent parody of it could have been really good, but instead the idea was wasted. The 30-second intro with the music reversed could have been something much more creative, for instance. Do something funny or over-exaggerated, film yourself jumping down off the counter in your kitchen and say something bizarre, preferably not another overused fat joke, but even that would have been better than just taking your dog for a walk. Maybe use some over-the-top screen bumps or reverse some footage and turn it into something cool. The idea had legs, but the execution felt lazy. It wouldn't have taken long to turn the 30-second intro from boring and something people just want to get through as fast as possible into something which pulled the viewer in. The intro I made for this video didn't take long, but I like to think it added something to the video. Perhaps you might think it added nothing and it was a little pretentious, but shut up. The intro at the start of Spartan's video didn't add anything, but it really could have been so much better, and that's a little bit of a theme in his videos. One of the main points he goes on to make is about how people in the community don't like him because he talks about trending topics in order to get views. Judging from the quantity of exposed videos on Brandon, I'd say that's probably true, but in my opinion it wouldn't be that difficult to change. By increasing the amount of production value in his videos, I think people would be quick to change their opinions. People notice when content improves. I'm not saying he has to turn all his videos into over-edited MLG parodies, but just adding cuts for comedic effect or where there's repetition, and no matter what Brandon says, repetition is common in his videos and isn't employed purely to emphasise a point. I'm also not saying he should stop clickbaiting or making 10-minute videos, but just little things like putting that extra effort into the intro would help immensely. It's unrealistic to expect him to suddenly turn into Colossal crazy, but more production value and creativity and less cutting corners would mean A, people in the community would respect him more, and B, he might build a more loyal fan base, something I'll come back to. Brandon said in his video that he toned down the screen zooms on the advice of other YouTubers. That's fine, but good editing is about a lot more than how many keyframes you've used. It's mostly about how using the software to best put across your point. Good editing doesn't necessarily mean making 1,000 cuts a video. It's about using the cuts to improve comedic timing and cut out repetition, and that's where I think Brandon could improve. Brandon covers the repetition aspect, saying he doesn't script his videos because it doesn't work for him, and that's fine. But that's where editing should come in. Record 15 to 20 minutes of footage and then cut it down to the really good stuff. If 15 minutes are good, then great. If there's only 8 minutes, then have a little more respect for your audience and release an 8-minute video. Brandon conveniently ignores the criticism of his Jinx video having an outro that was over 40 seconds long, and instead references the 5-second rap he did. 40-second outros are there for one reason and one reason alone, to stretch out the video. It bothers me that Brandon doesn't seem to respect his audience enough to think they will see that video and that outro and think anything other than he's stretching it out for ad revenue. I don't even care that he's doing it, but trying to lie to his audience by implying that it was just a 5-second rap was stupid and insulting. There's nothing wrong with making 10-minute videos, but the argument that Brandon goes on to make about TV shows fitting their content to certain lengths is an awful one. TV shows have to do this because that's the format and confines they work in. As a result, a lot of shows produce filler episodes which really add nothing to the story but provide something to fill the gaps with. YouTube doesn't have these restraints. That's just one of the reasons why it is such a great platform. By then forcing your content into this 30-second window is stupid and only adds to the idea that you don't respect your viewers. Whether or not that statement is true, something Brandon argues strongly against in his videos, that's the impression it gives. By being so inflexible, it doesn't come across as wanting to put out reliable, digestible 10-minute videos regularly for your audience. It comes across as greed. Whether or not that is the truth doesn't really matter because on YouTube, perception is reality. It doesn't matter if you are greedy, it matters if people think you are. This is where the bulk of my criticism therefore lies, how I think Brandon could improve his channel and simultaneously increase the amount of money he makes. At this point, Brandon has over 63,000 subscribers. That's a lot compared to someone like me, but his base viewership, the number of views he gets on videos that don't find their way into the recommended, is under 10,000. That's not a good ratio for a relatively young channel like Brandon's. It implies people are seeing his videos in their sub boxes and ignoring them. In an ideal world, Brandon, along with everyone else, would stop clickbaiting, stop developing content to be 10 minutes, and we could go on as normal. But life isn't like that, and I can't see Brandon stopping his baiting of the clicks. But I do think that some small changes would increase the loyalty of his fanbase and improve his perception around the community. So Brandon, if you ever see this, here's my final list. But even to everyone else, these ideas would work for a lot of channels in the community. Brandon's just an easy target. Number 1. Give a little bit more time into planning and being creative with your videos. Sometimes your good ideas get rushed because you're so eager to get out a video whilst the topic is still relevant. Spend the extra 2 or 3 hours, and although the views might be slower slightly, people will be more likely to stick around. In the long run, it will help you build a bigger, more loyal following, which will in turn give you more creative freedom and ultimately more money. Number 2. Edit more, but be subtle about it. Add in jokes and visual comedy in ways other than just screen zooms. Slice in footage from other videos. Be creative. Number 3. Have more respect for your viewers, or at least make that respect clear to them. If a video is only 10 minutes long because you've made the same point 4 times, then cut out the repetition and let it be 9 minutes. It might mean you lose $20, but people will appreciate your content more, and again, that leads to a more loyal following. Number 4. Change your hair. So now we have finally made it back full circle. Back to me. I saw a video by Glink on the dark side of vlogging, which talked about how if you're not pushing yourself creatively, then you won't find YouTube very fulfilling. The reason I keep changing up my style is that I want to keep developing creatively. Realistically, this channel is unlikely to ever grow large enough to become a job for me, and therefore there's almost no point settling on a style that's easy for me to produce, because ultimately then it's going to become a chore. But all of this comes with a cost. By constantly twisting and changing my style, it means that it's almost impossible to link my first videos to my current ones, at least visually. I've even considered deleting all of my older videos and creating a clean cut, a fresh start if you will, but I think that would be hiding the progression, and I actually don't think it would be honest. Simplifying the issue hugely, in order for YouTube to be enjoyable for a content creator, one of 2 things has to be happening. Number 1, your channel needs to be growing pretty quickly. Or number 2, you need to be enjoying making your content. If you look at some people, I don't really think they love making their videos. They have to churn out videos every day about topics which most of the time they probably don't even care about. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to offer them pity, they're making pretty good money. But the reason they can keep doing it is that their channels are still growing and they're still raking in the cash. But how long will that last? Who knows? And for me? Channel growth is awesome, but realistically as a tiny content creator, it's unreliable as a motivator. If you take a look at the Random Shark, his channel leapt from about 250 subs up to over 1,000 in about 2 weeks. That's awesome, but again, it's unreliable. I don't think Shark would have kept going for months, growing only slowly, if he didn't enjoy putting together his videos. His rate of growth is unlikely to be sustainable, so again, if growth is his only goal, then he may lose motivation. Congrats, by the way, Shark. I wouldn't be able to keep making videos if there wasn't at least a slight creative challenge involved in doing so. Hopefully this doesn't come across in my videos, but I am a chemistry student and I find it very difficult to produce coherent long pieces of text and essays. Part of the reason I started this channel was to try and overcome that, force myself to make my writing more fluent in order to help me in other areas. It's difficult sometimes for me to articulate what I want to say properly, particularly when I'm trying to write it down, and sometimes the text has no flow or rhythm to it. Again, I hope that hasn't come across, but it is the case. Video editing takes time and effort, but it's easy to see where you are improving. By watching my first video and my most recent video, I have tangible proof that illustrates my own development in terms of video production. But in terms of my writing style and fluency, that's much more difficult to keep track of. I can't just go and watch a tutorial on YouTube about how to write good. I just have to keep trying to do it. It is difficult to keep track of, but if it wasn't for that challenge, I never would have started this channel. I don't have a definite identity on YouTube. At the moment I'm going for an 80s vibe, which I quite like, but if I was looking to keep it going for a long time, that would probably change. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to end this video with some sad news. I will be ending my YouTube journey over the next month or two. I have a couple more videos that I want to make, and then I may make a goodbye special as well. I've known for a while that I was going to have to stop for personal reasons that I won't get into. I'm not dying or anything, don't worry, but life is only getting busier and thus leaves less room for YouTube. I'm not saying I'll never come back, but at the very least, it will probably be several months. I will, however, be intermittently active on Twitter, so if you have any burning questions, that's the place to find me. Thanks to everyone who's come along with me this far. I hope you don't regret it. All the best, thanks for watching, and for now, bye-bye. Did you get the documents? They're in the briefcase. Any hiccups? One casualty. Caught me off guard. I don't believe that for a second. Two between the eyes from close range. He won't be talking anytime soon. People will start asking questions. We need to be more discreet. People were already asking questions. I just made sure they're asking the wrong ones. I'm afraid I don't share your confidence. Whilst everyone's looking in one direction, you can carry out your plan uninterrupted. Yes, I know how a fucking misdirection works, but this was only one piece in the puzzle. Your actions have consequences far beyond what you know. You have what you wanted. The world isn't that black and white. I need to get back to London before anyone notices I'm gone. Your next instruction will come soon. Be ready.
Think with the head, argue with a gut. Draft you to leave the door open and might encourage customers and I wish the bar made shut. Look like down on my luck. 2 world wars and 1 World Cup. Screamed by the desperate divided crutch. Used to have an empire, then we grew up. Lost everything, who gives a money in a jukebox, rots all night. Same bands, too much hype. Everyone knows, everyone sees fights. Everyone's in